So welcome. As Peter was explaining, he, despite leaving lots of time, he got stuck with traffic. So it's not a problem. So
I'm ready.
Now we know how we're set up. If anybody wants to move the chair now, you probably need to move it now rather than later.
Again, you've seen my pallet there, the dry one, but they are stay wet, they are heavy bodies, so they shouldn't slide down there. You have got to be a bit careful when you first put them out in the car, because being very wet then, if you put them straight in and start moving them about, the whole lot can slide to one side. And I went to one demo having just put a new pallet out and found it was just like marbling at one side of the pallet, you know. I had to sort of try and pick things out from between it. So I'm keeping a bowl of water here. I shouldn't, strangely enough, surprisingly enough, I shouldn't need to wash the roller very often. We gradually, as we're working from mids to darks, it's only when it gets very dark that I've got to wash it to come back to going mids to lights again. But you'd be surprised how much I can do with this before washing it. First thing to do is to wet the roller, just damp it, and especially when you've washed it, make sure that after you've damped it, you do dry it off. It's not so bad right now because I'm just starting and the water needs to get into the roller. But if you've just washed it, they come back into your colour and you go like that, then you get it all trickling down. Which in this case, we don't want, but could give you other wonderful effects, and yes, we could use it in the future. So just get it damp for a start. I shan't get my brushes out yet. I keep both sets of those brushes in there, the flats and the filberts and rounds. I don't have a lot of brushes for my oil painting and acrylic painting. I don't tend to need them. I keep a couple of rakes as extras, but otherwise it's down to sponges and palette and painting knives and so on, and the sponge rollers. With watercolour it doesn't matter. I've got two sets of brushes with all sorts in, because I tend to need to use more special effects and different effects with the watercolour than I do with this. I have to lay it best I can. Right, to use the roller, we use a large brush first of all to mix the paint. So I'm going to just take a flat and decide what colour I'm going to go straight for. Mid-tone there would be, there's yellow ochre going on there, there's some lemon, there's some chrome yellow coming into it there, greens down here. Wherever you put the paint on with this technique, this jigsaw technique, if it's just using a brush even, it doesn't matter, same thing as any of those paintings. If you've got a colour on your brush, then don't just put it in one place. You see, this is watercolourists. They mix up a lovely mixture of watercolour paint and start painting with it. And each time they go back, they wash the brush and put it in water and put it back in the same mix. And you think, hang on, you wouldn't be doing that if you were doing a wash. When you're doing separate colours, you tend to do it. And it gets more and more thinned out. If you're a watercolourist, again, I don't know how advanced you are. As you all know about stay wet palettes, I suspect you're fairly advanced. But little tips on watercolour: if you want the watercolour to be richer and deeper, then add a little bit of gum arabic to the water you're actually painting with. Okay. If you don't want the first washes to flow afterwards, if you want them fixed, add a little bit of acrylic medium to the water, and that will fix those first washes totally. So there's two little tips there for you. I can go on giving lots and lots of tips tonight, but as things come up, I'll just do that. So the first thing I want to do is mix a colour here, and wherever I've got it on here, it's got to go in. So if I've got that yellow ochre there, a little bit down here, so a jigsaw, I just place those pieces in, and gradually, and I want to get rid of all of this white as quickly as I can, gradually I'll get the effect of light, and I can blend one colour over another and so on, and I'll cover the whole of the white canvas, and I should then be able to start bringing out these details. First thing I'm going to do then, a little bit of water on the brush, don't make it too thin. Take some yellow ochre. Now when you first start your first roller, it takes a bit more paint to get going. How are we doing for time? God, it's 20 minutes gone already. I've really got to shift on this, gabbling away at high speed. But and like I say, ask me again if I said something and you want to know again, or any questions at any time, just interject in. Now when I use the roller, the important thing now is, this I do need to show you, we take the roller through the brush. So we don't waste the paint on the brush. The brush goes there in your palette, and you, if I can keep it and do both hands, there we go, and you roll right through the brush and the roller, okay? Don't just roll a little bit in there. Totally coat your roller, depending how much paint you want. Now obviously if you used it in pastel, you can get lovely texture on here, where I'm using it very, very thickly. If you use a lot of water, you get it very, very thin. So you've already got, that won't be enough paint on there yet, but we'll just have a little go. Right, so yellow ochre going on up here a bit. I'm going to use the edge of the roller And look, you can actually make quite a fine line with the edge of the roller. You don't think, oh, it's a huge thing, what's he going to do with that? But it doesn't have to be. Now, if I push hard, I get, and that's the paint sort of medium thickness. So you can just see my drawing lines underneath. If I go a bit softer, then you'd get almost like a glaze. So I can put one colour over another, going thinner paint or softer with the roller. And I get the texturing by having thicker paint or thinner paint, and so on. Right, let's just get that going fast. A little bit more water. First colours, medium tone, yellow ochre. It's a great way to, and it's good for landscapes as well, as I say. I mean, you can see on there, even that sky was done with the roller the same. Right, yellow ochre, we've got it down. There. There's a little bit more brown down here, but down here to here, yep. It's more of a green actually coming down there, but I'll just put a bit of that on there just to get started. I'm going to press fairly hard at the moment just to get areas covered. So that going on down here. Don't worry about going over your lines because we're going to cut in with the brush later. So, you know, I can go around something with another colour or I can cut in with the brush later. There. It'll make sense as I go on. As I say, at the start it's just a few marks. But as I build it up, oh yeah, there's something appearing there, and suddenly a figure appears doing it this way. Suddenly, you don't have to worry about it being a person or it being a... They will just come if you put the right colours, in the right shapes, in the right places, and those colours are correct, relevant one to another. It has to be right, doesn't it? It just has to happen. So you can push those colours as far as you want. You see, I've enhanced that photograph. I mean, very often make my own photographs up, and a lot of the French scenes and cafe scenes that are so popular commercially. I'll composite them 2 or 4, 3, 4 or 5 pictures sometimes together on the computer to get the compositions I want. It's much faster for me to do it on the computer than to do it by drawing. Sometimes I will do a sketch, but now I can just cut and paste things around and get what I want. There we have a bit more pink. Already we've got some different colours coming up, and I can glaze one colour over another. You see straight away I can take one colour over another to make my mixes to glaze. It's so versatile. I'll make it look fairly simple, I hope. A bit more of that. I want to adjust it over here. I want to adjust that one. Where else have we got it? We've got it in his face. Use your finger if you want to smudge. There's a pencil coming off there. That'll fix that in a minute. And back there's a little bit. A bit more Lisbon crimson, I think, into that now. I'm not cleaning the roller. And it's quite nice having one colour coming into another a little bit each time as well. Something you tend to see again with the amateurs is brown fields, green grass, blue-green trees, blue sky. They separate things out into almost like cutouts. Maybe fortunately, you don't cut things out. These colours have to link one to another, and one colour will come into another reflecting. You've got blue light, you can have that blue light across everything, which is possibly why I've pushed that blue in that one so much, the market scene, because I wanted that early morning light just coming down and through as the market opens up. So I wanted a lot of blue light through that. But of course, as the Impressionist said, there is no such thing as black or white if you're painting as an Impressionist, because everything is a colour. If the blue light is affecting everything, it's going to be blue, the power of everything. If you've got a yellow light, then it's going to be, the yellow is going to be affecting everything. So black will not be black, it will be a colour affected by yellow. And black in daylight would be a colour affected by blue, so it would be a deep blue and so on. And I very seldom use black, except in these sorts of paintings that I'm doing now, and I did in that one. I tend to use it now as with white at the very, very end of a painting if I use it at all. If I'm making whites and I want things to sparkle, I've got to use one colour against another. In our armoury we've got rough and smooth, light and dark, cool and warm. We've got the colour hues. And every single colour has a colour hue, a cool and a warm. Our yellows have a cool and a warm. And then we've got the colour circle, the complementary colours, which we can play one to another and make things brighter and stand out. So it's not just tonal, we are playing one colour to another to make something bright. So we wouldn't use fluorescent paint to make fluorescent colour in the painting. We would put an opposite in the colour circle around it. So we put a very bright red next to a richer green or whatever in the opposite to make them stand out, or the power of. If you've got low light, then the colours are closer together and much duller. If you've got strong light and the shadows are much stronger, and then we want to see colour in those shadows as well, You can have reflected light, you can have warm and cool shadows, and it gets more and more advanced. You need to know this colour chemistry to really make things work. Right, let's go on to the... warm enough of that yet. Just about. Not just rolling it. Don't be stuck with the rules and regulations. So it could be used on plein air. It's just that if you want to wash things out, you've got a bit more stuff to carry around. It's a better technique for studio, really. I'm hoping to get this just about. I've got about 15 minutes left to try and get this covered. I'm hoping to just about get it covered by the time we have tea, the tea break. Don't worry about going over things like that. It won't really matter. It's quite nice to have one colour coming into another. So if I can build all these mid-tones up, get rid of all the white, I should be able to cut back in with the brushes and really pull it together quite rapidly. So by all means, you're a very quiet audience, which is good, but by all means ask questions about anything, not just this. If you want to, if I can give you any help or advice on anything, just perk up, speak up, and ask a question if you need, what I can.
Have you been using the rollers a long time?
Oh yeah, I mean I started off using them for abstracts.
Yeah.
Found they were a wonderful way to get texture and covering in great big paintings I was doing. When I was working through them, and I've had great fun. I was with Washington Green a while, Castle Galleries, and I was doing huge textural pieces. And rather than spend tons and tons of money on textures, I would use just ordinary household polyfiller, mixed with PVA glue, which gives it the plasticity, and that would take to a board or a canvas. And I would build up then these pictures using rice, grain, polystyrene broken, peas, beans, whole landscapes. For instance, I mean, you take a Scottish lochside scene, and for the seaweed, I was building up with cut off lengths of wool, great lumps of wool mixed in with the PVA and then stuck on, and built up all of these lovely pictures with that. Then would use sponge roll, so then I'd paint the whole thing in dark with a Prussian blue or deep colour. And then, as Monet actually worked very often with his textural pieces, I'd work up from mediums, darks and mediums to lights, scumbling over the surface of the colours in this sort of way. Wonderful effects, and finish off when it was dry with a special plastic resin. So it actually dried a 1/4 inch thick, like ceramics. It would just look like and felt like ceramics. Again, it's on my YouTube site if you want to see. All of it's there. And the SAA have got a whole blurb from me to upload at the moment on it. But it's not cheap. I would reckon the paintings would cost about, they were 5-foot paintings by 4. I reckon they cost about 60 quid a piece on materials. But it's great fun. So I'm working on this particular colour, the green. I'm working down towards my darks now. So start loose, finish tight is the advice here. And you can be as loose as you like at the beginning. Now what I do say, you saw I had a fairly tight drawing there. Now, you know, people say, well, can't you work loose completely? And I say, well, yes you can, but I often find when people are working in a very poor drawing or loose drawing to then work up tight, that they enhance the bad bits in the drawing and end up with figures that are totally out of proportion and so on. So better to start with the minimum on a drawing, just what you need. And then work within that, so at least your proportions should be about right to start with. Even now you're possibly starting to see the effects of light, just beginning on this. Going down to a Prussian blue into that green now, so you want to start getting, I'm working down towards my darks, so I've got a lot more reds to do. There's no one real rule to it, and I don't say you've got to do it this way and that is what this lady was saying about the watercolour classes. He told me I had to use the brush only left to right and doing the washes, and it was absolutely so prescriptive, you know. Yes, okay, you know, you can teach people to paint in so many ways, and there's no one right way, but it can stop creativity, I think, and this is why I'm doing something like this, just to show you how much fun you can have being creative. So we can't go blacker than black, we can't go whiter than white. So if we save our blacks and whites at the very end as a last resort, we'll be much better off. If I want sparkling water, then I want to be painting a lot of light, very light tints together against the darks. in textures, moving, gestural. If I'm painting water that's, this one please. If I'm painting water that's got reflections or is softer, then the trick you will find, one of my tips will be, everybody starts to paint water with horizontal strokes, don't. With still water, paint the depth first, paint the reflections first, paint the depth of the water that you can see into. Then come back to the surface with the reflections horizontally. Yeah? Got the two together. But do keep those horizontal marks are so important to get the feeling of still water and reflections. And then at the very end, you can come back with any little dots and dashes that are on the top, like little bits of weed or lilies. But work into the depth of the water first with your verticals and come back with the horizontals at the end. Don't go straight into. And what you think is dark at the moment, when I put the black on, won't be. I mean, that looks quite dark, but if I use black at the end, it won't be. It will be quite a light tone. So that's why I'm gradually building up. I'm not going straight into my dark, and I'm just putting on these medium colours first of all. And you'll see a figure appearing.
Yeah.
It's quite like magic, and it's such a lovely way to work. Jigsaw method, and you can do it with a brush the same. This is not just for sponge roller only, this technique at all.
Yes, it says here.
Well, it's a little bit more light on the tongue when I was drawing. I'm very suspicious as to where you are. Is it just a ruse? What are they? They can't any longer. Right, this is a £9 a canvas at the moment. They were 7, they've gone up.
I think I've only got yours and Shirley's number, and then he emailed Sue chatting going back, and I was like, turn the sound off. Yeah, because so it was only me going.
Depends what you do.
Yeah. Some people say when I do this to concentrate on what you're going to want the atmosphere to take
We went on holiday and it's just going to have now. December.
Oh yes. I'm just thinking well, it is a strange it certainly is.
I'll take them home
Yeah, okay.
and then I'll put them in a great big box.
Are we all back again? Right, yes. This is when it's going to start happening. I'm almost done my sponge work. I've done the undertaking. You can almost see the figures coming, you see.
Yeah.
So now I need to come back in and really work up. So what I will do is just put my roller there and wash it later, and I can use this pot. Now I'm going to go to flat brushes now. I just want to do slabs of paint. I literally almost want to paint like a jigsaw. I'm not going to need fine brushes. I'll leave that till the end if I want any fine work at all, just to titivate and cross the T's at the end. They last quite a while, these brushes. I mean, I can manage usually about 15, 20 paintings if I have to change them. Right, 2 flats, 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch. Now I like long handles. These are nylon, and the difference with them is that they are not too stiff and not too soft. If you use a watercolour brush with acrylics, which you can do for fine work with acrylics, like you can, like you can with watercolour technique with acrylics, or you can use a really heavy, stiff brush if you want to slab things on, or use with a knife. These have enough body to shift heavy paint and paint opaquely a la primer, or they are fine enough to be able to do quite thin washes. That's why I like them. They're in between, so I'll pass that one around just so you can feel it. I can work over, and I don't want to paint out all the lovely texturing underneath. That isn't the idea of this. I want to be semi-contemporary in the fact that it's slightly, we're working its abstract qualities, so we don't want to lose that lovely texture we've got underneath here. It's got a bit mucky, we'll have to let that dry a bit more. So really nice heavy cream paint. You could even use a knife if you wanted to, but I just like to have more control with this way of working. And I can now cut in and around forms and start to draw with a brush. Don't need a lot more, they don't usually need a lot more, but I just need to tighten them up just a bit at the end. Just look where the colours are, got it on your brush and you see it somewhere else, well use it. I just want to be as simple as I can with these. Just put the colours in where they are, as near as I can where they are. And cut around the forms. And the beauty of the flats and of course the filberts as well is that you've got a pointy side and a flat edge, so I can use the pointy side when I want to do finer lines, or and of course the filberts are lovely for doing leaves and things because you've got a rounded edge, so they're just perfect for leaves. And they are nice brushes, these. You know, you're almost there now, aren't you? It's just amazing how fast you can work this way. If you keep it simple, just try and have a few marks to say anything. Don't overdo it. And let the viewer do some of the work. Don't cross the T's too much or make it too. Let them look and try and find what you're painting inside here. Let a few marks. Keep it as simple as you can. I'm starting to go around figures and find things here now. It isn't always when you're looking at it, that's why I was going to practice anyway. I started that comment just now for a reason. Very often when something is wrong with a painting, don't think it is what you have first seen. Very often with a painting, the thing that is wrong is something next to it. So make sure that it isn't something else that's wrong in the painting that actually is making you think what you've done is wrong. It probably isn't. It's something nearby that can be changed. For example, painting I did Bridlington Harbour sunrise years ago, and I should just finish in the sun timing, good. And I couldn't get the sun bright enough. I could brighter, more orange, more red, and what am I doing here? It's a bit like that rose. No, hang on, I'm going the wrong way. I'm trying to increase rather than put something against. So then I went down to my cooler colours and put them against the warm colours, and of course rather than just being up warmer, I put the cool in to bring the warms out. So it's not the thing you think is wrong always, think the opposite end and see why something's happening. It is nice to have some colours you just can't make. You've got to have magenta, you can't do without it. You've got to have, I like cerulean is the next one. Magenta and cerulean are vital, but I'm just trying to think of the blue. I'm just using turquoise, magenta, turquoise. You can't make a purple without magenta and turquoise or cerulean. If you do as the school books say and use red and blue, we'll end up with a brown. So if I used cadmium red and cobalt blue, I'd end up with a nice sort of reddy brown. But if you want a purple, you've got to have your magenta, so don't miss that one out. And the turquoise is a lovely colour, and many of these colours you cannot mix. They are primaries, and you simply cannot mix them, so you've got to have them, you know, nice and clean in the tube really. I could come down to a little round brush now. I'm just going to try and get away with my flat just by doing curves here. I can come in a bit finer later, but I want to keep everything to just a simple little marks. And colours that companies make as well. It reminds me of boats on the Broads, but that each company has its own. If you get ultramarine from one firm, it's quite different from another firm and so on. But some of them even have their own names, don't they? And I used to think of the boats, because I used to teach sailing on the Norfolk Broads years ago, and I'm thinking of the boats on there. and they were called glistening waters and sparkling light. And I would just call them diesel farts and, you know, awful things. It's so much fun to have. And it should be fun. I mean, I don't like going to do a demo unless I'm going to enjoy it. It's always a worry, but I mean, when I get up here and I'm painting, and that's it. I'm just enjoying, and I'm trying to just share that with you and just indicate one, get the right shapes and the right colours. It's going to just appear, isn't it? We hope. Just putting an approximation, just putting an impression of the cool green against the warmer green, and the very dark green going on, the warm dark green going on up into here as it comes against light against dark, warm against cool, rough against smooth. Adjusting those colour hues across, from warm yellows to cool yellows, from warm greens to cool greens. I'm constantly looking at the colours I'm using and saying, well, is that somewhere else? Because if so, we need it. Like that, for instance. One colour is just so important to get these colours right. Now, we were talking earlier about light colours, and I just put white into there, but actually I want to go back and enhance that white. So I'm going to use a tint of very, very light magenta. Very, very light, just to try and give that light a little. I may have to put some blue on too, but I just want to give it a bit more radiance. And even such a subtle tint as that, you see the difference it makes? It's very important. We don't just use pure white, but everything has a colour, that everything is reflecting light, so it must have. Having done that, then I want to play a little bit of the cool, so I'm going to take a very, very light powder blue and work the opposite to try and get the effect of this light glowing. Yeah, such subtle little tones, but one colour can change everything. That light blue again, if I bring it down to here and reflect it on the light here. Down to there. Small touches of colour can do so much. Let's look at these reds here. We've got warm and cool reds going on. Let's take some magenta and deliberately play the cool and warm reds a bit more just here. Cool red, possibly against a warmer one, under that shadow. Magenta. Now we'll go to some warmer reds, take some cadmium, then we'll go to some orange. Let's really slab this in just here. be afraid to come across things. If you're painting arms, come across and feel surfaces. When you're drawing something, make the marks about what you're drawing. If it's a broken bit of glass or broken bit of metal, make your drawing very broken. Yeah. If it's a smooth thing, then disappear, use a rubber, take it out, whatever. It's the same with brush marks. Let your brush marks feel the thing you're doing. If it's an explosive plant, make it an explosive plant. If it's moving water, make it moving water. At the moment, I'm feeling this. And the worst thing you can do painting an arm is to paint down the arm. Paint across and round and down again, just like I was doing the water. Don't just paint along things. Right, let's take a bit of that lovely deep orange. A bit lighter, I think. Cadmium orange. Just get some reflection going on up here.
I'm sure everybody feels the same way that I did. We've been watching for hours and
Well,
absolutely
we're up to minutes to.
fascinating.
That's where we'll stop it at then for the moment. And you can see how I'm going to finish off. Just going to keep building up and.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. I'm sure everybody feels the same as I do.
Oh, yes,
When he was
yes.
doing the rollers and then all those little spots, and every time you see
Just a
something
touch,
magical,
something.
it's absolutely amazing.
It's
Thank you.
delicacy of touch. It is brush skills as well. And thank you very much for inviting me. It's been good fun. You've been ever such a good audience, so quiet and watching. But now's your chance for a few questions so we pack up. Have you got any questions at all? Well, here we are back in the studio, and I don't need to do a lot to it. It's a lovely loose piece as it is, but in places a canvas, the paint's a bit thin on the canvas. So I'm going to go in and just slab up and tidy up some more of the areas and just neaten them up and be a bit clearer in some places. Having done this demo last night, and we'll just finish it off ready for the market. Well, I think that's done now, and I'm just going to put a signature on it. And well, that's varnished later. The colour, I always varnish my paintings, the colours come right out. So I used a water-based varnish called Cobra, normally, which is a reasonably priced aerosol spray, at about £11 a tin. It goes on nice and evenly. You just spray it when it's flat over the surface, and it really brings out those rich colours of the acrylics. So we'll just decide now upon a signature, because that is make or break a painting. And I think we could have a dark signature down here. We could have a lighter one to reflect the light. It might be quite nice to have a, just look at a dark first, and try a black first of all, and just see how that looks. Yeah, that's quite nice, it's going to do well. Nice, dark and flowing signature. There we go. Take a photograph of that. That demo is done. Let's just take a closer look at some of it. You can see how this jigsaw method of just putting the colours one next to another works so easily and well. Just hints of the colour wherever they are, to give an impression or an illusion of them. And if everything is the right colour, the right lights, the right shapes, relevant one to another, then suddenly we have a lovely picture. Which will do just fine.